A side, B side, what side are you on?
Well, welcome back to another episode of A Side B Side Podcast. What's going on, Adam?
I'm doing well, Brooke. How are you?
Good. So, I'm going to try to remain calm this week. Sometimes I get worked up, but I don't know that my voice will hold. So I'm trying to be as calm as possible.
Well, tis the season for sinus and throat crud with all the constant change of temperature and wind
Mhm.
and cold and all that nonsense. So,
And of course, you have to preface everything these days. It's not COVID. I went to the doctor.
yeah,
My lungs are clear. It's just my sinuses. But like yesterday, it was 60 degrees. And then today, it was like 30. And then it's going to be like 19. And then it's supposed to get
yeah.
back up to 50. So, yeah, I mean, and this is my first winter here. So, yes, absolutely having sinus issues.
Oh, and different pollens and different, trees and
Right.
you different part of the country. So stuff that you probably haven't encountered in a while, and you know, it's understandable.
Come to Nebraska, they said. It's beautiful, they said.
It is pretty
What
beautiful.
they
I
didn't
mean,
tell me is I wouldn't be able to breathe while I was here.
well, yeah. I mean, 60 degrees sounds pretty amazing. I
That's
I
true.
was really good yesterday. We took a long walk for the first time in like 6 weeks because it was over 30. So 60
Yes,
degrees, I'd be outside in probably like shorts and sandals.
yeah, I'm not going to complain to you. It's just because I know it's so much colder there. It's just the constant shifting of the
Yeah,
temperature.
like the nice part is it's not nice, but I like that for the most part Minnesota, like for December, January, February, just sticks between like 10 degrees and 30 degrees. Like occasionally it'll get real cold, but you don't have that like false spring until
Hmm.
like late March or April. So you don't have like 60-degree swings. I mean, it's like jumping from the sauna into the deep end of the pool, and just your body goes into shock.
Yeah. So real fast, two things I saw this week: the Tinder Swindler on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Everybody's. I have not. I've heard about it. People have been raving about it. I've actually watched very little TV in the last week that wasn't sports related. So it was a big sporting weekend. Um, but yeah, no, I've heard great things about it.
It is very good. I really wasn't kind of keen on watching it, and then I was at work doing a story about it or reading a story about it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I need to watch this." So, and then the funniest thing is I just saw a report on TMZ that um his name is oh goodness, now I can't think of it. Anyway, um Lviv. It's something Lviv. Anyway, Simon Lviv. That's it. Well, Simon Lviv is now trying to break into Hollywood. He's wanting to get like a book deal, and he's wanting to like coach a dating show or something. It's like, are
Oh
you
yeah,
serious?
yeah. He's trying to get famous off of this.
He's
It's
milking it.
yeah, of course. I mean, I guess you gotta shoot your shot when you got the chance, I guess.
Right. And then the other thing I saw on Netflix is um um Love is Blind season 2. You know that
Mm-hmm.
I am obsessed with that show.
Yes, I've been holding off because I want to binge it. But honestly, I love the first season, and I like it feels like the bar is set so high
Uh-huh.
from all those characters for the first season that like I'm not sure if season 2 is going to have any chance to live up to it.
I don't know if they did 10 more seasons, would it ever live up? But
Yeah, because that was such a perfect storm of personalities.
right. And what I have to keep telling myself, like when I first started, because I got into it, like no problem. But like when I first started, I had to keep telling myself, this is a whole new show. This is not, act like it's not even Love is Blind, because it will never compare. And if you keep trying to compare it, you'll be sorely disappointed. This is a brand new show. Act as if Love is Blind, the first season, didn't ever happen. You have
Yeah,
to.
yeah, just treat it as a whole new thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you treat it like that, like it's its own entity and you don't compare, it's pretty entertaining.
Well, I mean, we've gotten used to doing it with like the singing competitions and the Dancing with the Stars and the top next top model, and
Mm-hmm.
after the first one, you can just watch every season and enjoy it for what it is, I think. So
Yeah.
but it was such a unique thing and so many unique characters. That's why to me it'll always be kind of connected with the first few seasons of Real World that I watched,
Mm-hmm.
because now they've got like 47 seasons of Real World and Road Rules, and I don't even know if any of them are still going on, but by the end it was like meh. But those first few seasons, it was so unique
Oh man, those
that like,
first
they
few
stick with
seasons
you.
were gold.
Yeah, it just kind of sticks with you, but then at some point it becomes a parody of itself. So I don't know, what was her name, Jessica, the one who just really wanted to connect with somebody, and when the guy that she wanted went was for somebody else, then
Barnett. Mm-hmm.
yeah, Burnett, and then she was like, I'm gonna find a match, because I said, to me, she was on it like she wanted to get famous.
Yeah.
Like that was her whole reason for being there,
I was actually surprised she didn't end up with like her own kind of spinoff or something.
right? But I think maybe everyone was like, ooh, everyone hates her.
Yeah, yeah. But see, that's another, I mean, it could go either way because it's like, ooh, people don't like her. So they might hate watch, you know?
Yeah, but I wonder if maybe she like is you've got like what Bethany Frankel, who was on like the first season of Real Housewives, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she's got her like she blew up into her own brand and everything. So you got to think people are looking at that and saying like that could be me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when you get to binge it, I know the first 5 are out now. Friday, I think 2 more come out. It's kind of like how they did it last year. So I think Friday 2 more will come out, the following week 2 more, and then they'll do the season finale.
Nice. Yeah. It was perfect timing, because that was when the first shutdown had happened, is when I
Mm-hmm.
watched it. And that was when, it was like no one's leaving their house, we're not doing anything, vaccines are a year away, so we're just going to binge watch stuff by ourselves. And that was like the first show that I like virtually watched with somebody, with friends, all us watching all at the same time, like everybody texting like, okay, hit play,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could be texting about it and talking about it while it's happening. So that also be kind of unique.
I think that's all I got. I found out that the last season of Peaky Blinders has been announced, and one of my characters actually died in real life. I didn't know that.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So of course, all the characters that have been associated with it are coming back except for her, but they said they're going to be doing like a really beautiful tribute for her.
Hmm.
Um,
Was it,
yeah.
what happened?
She had breast cancer.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So but I think that's all I've got.
So I watched mostly sports this past week. Of course, there was like the book of Boba Fett ended last week, and that was really good. It's the number one most watched season finale on Disney Plus now.
Oh wow.
It just this last week they said it's the most watched thing on Disney Plus ever. So that's kind of
Wow.
cool. But of course, the Super Bowl was this
Oh, of
weekend,
course. And
right?
the halftime show.
Halftime show is great, but the most important thing that happened in the Super Bowl for Adam's life is Jack McCoy is back. Law and Order is coming back, and they're bringing Jack McCoy
Oh
back.
yeah, I saw that.
I had no idea. We were having a little get together in the lobby of my apartment building, and everybody was watching it, and I like shushed people because I was like, "What? Are they really bringing it back?" I was so excited.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, I forgot one more thing that I watched. That Marry Me with Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson.
Oh, did you see it?
I did. It's on Peacock.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I guess it was in the theater for like a week.
Yeah, ugh, is the correct response to that. Ugh.
It feels like it was a movie that was made in like 2005, and then just somebody forgot about it, and they were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, well, we'll just release it as a new movie with these two big stars, Owen Wilson and Jennifer Lopez, and it'll do great." And you're like, "Where did this even come from?"
It's so like everything you expect. Like it is predictable down to almost the lines. Like
Yeah.
if you've watched any rom-com at all, you'll be like, yeah, I know what's coming next. Yep, I know. Oh, yeah, yeah, called that too. Yep.
Another one that I'm slightly concerned for, but because of who's in it, I will probably go see it, is the new Sandra Bullock, Channing Tatum, like treasure hunt one, but then Brad Pitt's also in it and Daniel Radcliffe as like the bad guy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So and you know my love for Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, and obviously Sandra Bullock as well. So it feels like it could be really fun, or it could be another one where you're like, wow, this is kind of just exactly what you expect all the way down.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It'll be interesting.
All right. Well, so in the interest of saving our voices,
thank you.
Shall we begin?
I think we shall. So this is week 81, and this is not what I had originally planned, but due to my voice, I found, well, it's one I had, but it's a bit shorter than typical. I say that now, and then here an hour later I'll be like,
yeah,
and then
we'll look up and then
and then finally that's the B-side.
Yeah.
So this is the story of Ira Samuel Einhorn, also known as the Unicorn Killer. No, he didn't have a horn on his head, Adam.
Unicorn Killer.
It's because his name Einhorn in German translates.
Oh, interesting.
So Ira was born May 15th of 1940 in Philadelphia to a very middle-class Jewish family. Not a whole lot is known about his really, really early years. We do know that he went to the University of Pennsylvania, and he actually got his undergrad degree in English in 1961 before going back to school to complete some graduate work in 1963. He ended up becoming active in ecological groups and was part of the whole 1960s counterculture, anti-establishment, anti-war movement that was big, 60s, 70s. He was actually a speaker at the very first Earth Day in Philadelphia in 1970. And he claims that he was instrumental in creating and launching the event, but organizers have kind of been like, that ain't true.
They're like, yeah, we don't want to be associated with the murdery dude, so no. Please don't associate with us.
Right, exactly. So Ira was an instructor of English at Temple University during the 1964-1965 year. Fun fact, my mom actually went to Temple.
Really?
Yeah.
I always liked Temple.
Yeah, my mom went there.
Isn't that where Mr. Cosby went?
I believe so, yes. I believe so.
Mm-hmm. That was cooler 20 years ago.
Yeah. So he was, like I said, he was an English professor, but his contract was not renewed after he conceded his contempt for the academic world. Kind of hard to be a professor when you have contempt for academia.
I don't know. I work in the restaurant industry as one of my jobs, and pretty much every day the entire staff is talking about their contempt for the restaurant industry, but we make it through.
He also kind of boasted about the straight answers and delights and dangers of cannabis and LSD to students in an interview. Yeah.
Understandably, the university might not be like, oh, okay, maybe don't promote drug use.
Right. But get this, he was also a resident fellow at the Harvard Institute of Politics during the autumn semester of 1978. So Ira, he'd like to call himself a radical hippie in the 60s and 70s. So he, of course, didn't abide by typical hygiene standards like, bathing his body or using deodorant. So
just a man trying to keep you down right there.
Oh, he smelled real bad. One friend described him with an odor of a hoagie with onions. Have you ever I know this has happened to you because we've been in the office when this happened. Someone comes in with like a sub sandwich and it's got onions on it. And you're like, is that me? What is oh, someone's got a sandwich. Oh, thank gosh.
Or somebody brings like fish from home and heats it up in the microwave, and then you're like, wow, that's all I can smell for like the next 2 weeks.
I know. Yeah, but with the hoagie thing, you're like, is that like I bathed today? Like, what is like, has that ever happened to you? Like, you're like, I swear I bathed. Oh, that's someone's sub. Yeah. Okay.
I have such a horrible sense of smell, and I wish that there was some logical reason for it, but I've never had a good sense of smell. So I have been paranoid since I was like in middle school and I started to like be a teenager and sweat. I am petrified of being the one who's the smelly kid and not knowing it.
Yeah.
So like for a while there, you know, as a middle schooler and high schooler guy, at some point you're putting on way too much polo by Ralph Lauren. But I'm something I'm paranoid about every day. So totally.
Well, this dude actually did smell real bad. And he also had a habit of, so he grew a really long beard. He didn't maintain it, so he looked really unkempt. And then he had a habit of undressing right in front of his students. Not surprisingly, he was also known to be a bit of a sexist. Shocker. So Ira Einhorn.
I can't believe this guy got fired.
I know. He sounds like a real PH. Such a mensch. He had a 5-year relationship with Holly Maddox. Holly was a graduate of Bryn Mawr College, and she was originally from Tyler, Texas. Well, I think Holly finally caught on to the stinky hoagie smell and the undressing in front of everyone. Oh, and his misogyny, and she was done. And so they broke up in 1977. So Holly leaves Ira in Philadelphia, and she goes off to New York City, where she meets someone else. She becomes involved with this new person, his name, Saul Lapidus. Well, on September 9th of 1977, Holly goes back to Philadelphia to the apartment that she had previously shared with Ira to get her things, because Ira kept telling her he was going to throw her stuff out in the street with the trash. September 9th is the last time that Holly is ever seen. So a few weeks go by and nobody sees Holly. So the Philadelphia police start raising some questions. They ask Ira about Holly, and he says, last time I saw her, she went out to the neighborhood co-op to buy some tofu and sprouts, and she never came back. So this alibi comes into question when neighbors began to complain about a foul smell coming from his apartment. Literal dead giveaway.
Yeah, and it wasn't just him this time.
Right? They were like, I mean, I know it's pretty raunchy smelling around here, but something's different. So, of course, this raises suspicion of the authorities. 18 months pass. On March 28th of 1979, Holly's decomposing body is found by police in a trunk in Ira's closet.
18 months?
18 months. So after the police find Holly's body, they say to Ira, well, it looks like we found Holly. And he says, you found what you found. Ira's attorney, Arlene Specter, of course, you know, he's arrested. So she is able to negotiate bail of $40,000. He's released from custody after posting a bond of $4,000, which is 10%. This was actually paid by Barbara Bronfman, who was a Montreal socialite who had married into the wealthy Bronfman family. And she had met Ira through a shared interest of the paranormal. Before Holly's body was initially discovered, before he was arrested and after she was discovered, I apologize, Ira had initially told his friends that she was killed by the CIA or the KGB. And the reason was because he had discovered evidence of secret mind control experiments that had been performed by the government. And he says that they killed her to frame him so that when he came out with this information, nobody would believe him. Here's the thing, though. Ira also had a history of violence toward women. He physically abused at least 2 girlfriends. That's 2 that came forward. One had to get medical attention after she tried to break up with him, and he nearly choked her to death. Another had to go to the hospital after he broke a glass bottle over her head when she tried to end it. So he got real violent when he got rejected. So in 1981, just days before his murder trial is set to begin, Ira Einhorn skips bail and flees to Europe. Now, he had to have some help during this flee, right? Well, remember Barbara Bronfman?
Mm-hmm.
She actually continued to support him for quite some time. Like, he skips town in 1981. She continues to support him for years. She continued to support him until she read a book by Stephen Levy called The Unicorn Secret. And that book was filled with so much information about Ira that she finally stopped aiding him. Anyway, so Ira skips town. He flees to Europe. He lives in Europe for the next 17 years under the name Eugene Milan. While he's there, he ends up getting married to a Swedish woman named Annika Flodin. Well, of course, he had been arrested. You know, he's being charged with murder. That case is not going to just sit there. What happens is back in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, they go ahead and convict him in absentia, which means while he's not there. They still hold the trial and everything. So he's convicted in 1996 of Holly's murder. He's sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So Holly's parents, unfortunately, pass while Ira is on the run. Holly's dad passed in 1988. He was already suffering from rheumatoid arthritis and the loss of his daughter. On top of that, he ended up taking his own life. Holly's mom passed away in 1990 from emphysema. In 1997, so he flees in 81. In 97, he's arrested in Champagne-Mouton, France. He had been living, like I said, under the alias Eugene Milan. Yes, there is extradition between the US and France, but it gets a bit tricky. So under the extradition treaty between France and the United States, either country can refuse to extradite that prisoner under certain circumstances. So Ira, knowing this, used this to his advantage a bunch to avoid extradition. So now remember, in the States, Ira has been sentenced to life without prison, life in prison without the possibility of parole. So while he was not sentenced to death, his defense attorneys argued that he would face the death penalty if he returned to the United States. Well, we've seen this before. Like when we talked about stories in the UK, there's a lot of countries that don't believe in the death penalty anymore. And France abolished the death penalty. So they will not extradite people to jurisdictions that still have death penalty without reassurance that it will not be sought or applied. So Pennsylvania authorities pointed out that the murder occurred when it occurred that the state did not practice the death penalty, so that Ira could not be executed because the state and federal constitutions forbid ex post facto, which means you can't retroactively change a law. So if somebody commits a crime when it's not a crime, you can't change the law and then be like, well, now it's a crime, so we're going to go back and punish you. So they're saying because there was no death penalty and now there is, we can't go back and say, well, but we're still going to give them the death penalty.
Right.
So they were like, we're not going to execute him. So then the next so that didn't really work for him. So his next strategy involved French law and European Court of Human Rights, which requires a new trial when the defendant is tried in absentia and unable to present a defense. So even though he fled and was on the run, he's saying, well, they convicted me while I wasn't there, so I need a new trial.
I didn't have a chance to defend myself.
Right. So on the basis of this, the Court of Appeals of Bordeaux rejected the extradition request. which is like, are you freaking kidding me? He flees. So he misses his court date. And now he's saying, but I couldn't defend myself.
Yeah. So he's being rewarded for his bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. So following the Bordeaux court's decision, 35 members of Congress sent a letter to French President Jacques Chirac to ask for Ira to be extradited. Another snafu happens. So under France's doctrine of the separation of powers, which was invoked in this case, the president can't actually give orders to the court and can't intervene in extradition affairs. So in 1998, to secure Ira's extradition, the Pennsylvania legislature passed a bill, which has been nicknamed the Einhorn Law, allowing defendants convicted in absentia to request another trial. Well, whoop, another delay tactic. Of course, his attorneys like swoop in and they criticize the bill as unconstitutional, and they try to get the French courts to once again deny the extradition on the grounds that this law would be inapplicable. French court is like, yeah, here's where we step out. We tap out here, because they said we can't evaluate the constitutionality of foreign laws. Like, how can we say what's constitutional and what's not when it's not our constitution?
Yeah.
So another point of contention with the United States was the fact that the court had freed Ira under police supervision, because French laws put restrictions on remand or imprisonment. So, of prisoners awaiting trial. So because he was just awaiting trial, they were like, okay, we'll let you go. So Ira then becomes the focus of intense surveillance by the French police. So the case goes before Prime Minister Lionel Jospin. After all this, the extraditions are finally approved by the court, and they have to be ordered by an executive. So the French Green Party states that Ira shouldn't be extradited until they are certain that the Einhorn Law cannot be reversed. Well, Prime Minister Jospin, he rejects that claims, and he says, nope, let's go. And he issues an extradition decree. He's like, get out of here.
Yeah, at this point, they're like, we got to be done with this.
Yeah. So Ira Einhorn then litigates against the decree before the Conseil d'État, which rules against him again. So basically, it's like, look, you're going. And they refuse to look at the constitutionality of the US laws, because again, they're like, we can't say what's constitutional in another area.
Just so many stall tactics.
So all of the stall tactics have gone by the wayside. He is out of moves. He then attempts to slit his own throat. He fails. Eventually, he takes his case before the European Court of Human Rights, and they also rule against him. So on July 20th of 2001, Ira Einhorn is extradited back to the United States. That was a long process.
Yeah, no, it was
97 to 2001.
Plus, then he first ran in what, 70?
In 81.
81. So
yeah. So basically, geez. 81 to 2001. So back in the United States, Ira takes the stand in his own defense, and he claims that Holly, like I said, was murdered by CIA agents trying to frame him.
I love that he's still sticking with that 20 some years later. He's like, oh yeah, it was totally the CIA.
Yeah. Well, of course, the jury hears this and they're like, whatever. So after only 2 hours of deliberation, they convict Ira Einhorn on October 17th of 2002. It was a month-long trial. The next day, he's sentenced to a mandatory life term without the possibility of parole. So basically, he got the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So Ira Einhorn begins serving a sentence at Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Houtsdale. In November of 2006, Ira's sentence was unanimously affirmed by the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. On April 3rd of 2020, Ira Einhorn dies in the Pennsylvania SCI Laurel Highlands. His death was reported to be of natural causes and not COVID related. There you go. That is the story of the unicorn killer and his stall tactics.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like the unicorn killer doesn't even really like fit him. It's Mr. Red Tape. It's finding any way possible to avoid having to pay for his crimes.
Yeah. Oh, it was the CIA, the KGB. It was aliens. It was unicorns.
You can't you can't extradite me because going to prison for life is the equivalent of the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, it's not constitutional to make a law named after me.
It's just like he must have done pretty well for himself to be able to have this many lawyers for that many years fighting in various courts, or maybe he was getting some help from somebody, because that's a long time.
In the very beginning, he was getting help from that Barbara Bronfman until she read that book and was like,
he appears to be a really bad dude.
Yeah, he's not the guy I thought he was. There you go. That's the B-side.
So for the A-side this week, it was kind of brought on by seeing the previews this weekend for the new Law and Order return. But it's also been something that I've mentioned several times over the last few weeks that I wanted to get into eventually. And it kind of fit both with Law and Order returning and the idea of Jack McCoy being sort of a tentpole character for the Law and Order series. And also the character is showing up in one of the many spin-offs, not personally, but the character itself is continuing this to be part of the stories. So I've mentioned that I wanted to talk about the retirement / departure of Leroy Jethro Gibbs from NCIS for a while now, and how it's been one of the more unique stories about a character leaving a show. And I've been waiting to talk about it because I kind of wanted to see how things were starting to play out with the new version of NCIS and how the show was going to change. When for the last, Mark Harmon first appeared as Jethro Gibbs in an episode of JAG, which I'd completely forgot that NCIS was a spinoff from JAG, and JAG has not been on the air for 17 years. Long time. I completely forgot JAG existed for a little bit. And that's how NCIS came about. NCIS has spawned 4 different shows. The original NCIS New Orleans, which was basically just sort of a Scott Bakula version of Jethro Gibbs in New Orleans. That one has actually already been run its full course. It ended last year. So the original has outlived one of its spinoffs. And of course, you've got NCIS Los Angeles with Chris O'Donnell and LL Cool J, and has been running for years. And the brand new NCIS Hawaii, which just in the last week, I found out I'm going to have to start watching, because they're tying it in with the original series again. It's kind of neat. We were talking about Love is Blind. Mm-hmm. The lead actress on NCIS Hawaii is Vanessa Lachey.
So, okay. Right.
So in my brain, I was like, why do I recognize her? And I didn't put 2 and 2 together, because I was like, I'm not getting into another show. I got too much to watch already. If I pick up another show, I'm just going to have more I don't watch, and I'll feel bad. But yeah, she's the lead actress, and her character, evidently they discovered, and there's going to be a lot of spoilers because this is 18 years of a television show, and I'm going to talk about a lot of people, characters that died. So if you don't want to know anything about the NCIS, you should probably just skip to the end and remember to buy us a coffee, because there's a lot going on. NCIS, the new one, Hawaii, the main character played by Vanessa Lachey was recruited to NCIS by Jethro Gibbs, and they crossed paths back in the day. Mark Harmon doesn't even appear in the episode. There's simply a business card that somebody hands Vanessa Lachey in a flashback sequence that sets up her eventually becoming an NCIS agent. And of course, it's Leroy Jethro Gibbs' business card that she should call if she wants to find out about a job. The character of Gibbs was completely central to every storyline in the last 18 years of NCIS, and a lot of stuff happened. And Mark Harmon was pretty much the only actor that was consistent through the entire run of the show. Sean Murray, who plays Timothy McGee, was in a lot of episodes.
Oh, yeah, McGee.
You know, and he's now like the only one left because everyone's gone. This show has gone through in 18 years. It's gone through a ton of names. If you start looking at all the actors that have come and gone over the last 18 years, it's kind of amazing that the one that just never, the only consistent, the only, you know, person who was always there was Mark Harmon. I mean, you go all the way back to Sasha Alexander, who played Caitlin Todd in the first few seasons and had, again, spoiler alert, one of the most shocking deaths at the end of a season ever. And full disclosure, I have watched every episode of NCIS in the last 2 years. So I went all, when shutdown started back in March of 2020, I went back to episode number 1 and watched every single episode of NCIS over the last, 24 months. So I'm probably way passionate about this just because I've seen everything within a very short period of time. It's 20, almost 20 years worth of a TV show that I've watched in less than 2. So way too passionate about this. But Caitlin Todd had a just shocking death. But then Sasha Alexander would go on to have a great series with called Rizzoli and Isles, which is another Law and Order connection because Angie Harmon was on there and she was on Law and Order. Then you had just in the last few years, you've lost Michael Weatherly, who went on to do his own thing on Bull. Cota Pablo, Ziba David, who she came and left a couple of times. Polly Perrette, who played Abby Shudo, is one of the most iconic characters of the show, actually left back in 2018. You've had characters come and go, all under the same umbrella of Gibbs being there. Emily Wickersham played Ellie Bishop for 172 episodes. Maria Bello had a really great character and a bit of a romance with Gibbs, and she left in just last year in 2021. Lauren Holly was on the show for a while.
Yeah.
Jennifer Esposito was on the show way back when. Mike Muse Watson, who is this great character actor, played Mike Franks, and he and T.C. Fornell, played by Joe Spano, were kind of the buddies to Gibbs, and he's lost both of those characters in different ways over the years. So the character Gibbs has gone through just this amazing amount of trauma, even from the beginning, when this, his backstory is that his wife and daughter were killed, and that's when he became an NCIS agent, and has always lived, leaves his front door open because he's already lost the 2 most important things in the world to him, and everything else can be replaced. So he doesn't feel the need to ever lock his door. That's how his story starts. Go through the entire series where you're losing coworkers and friends and family, till we get to a point last season where I wasn't really sure if they were going to truly play it out. And you saw an emotional breakdown. And after everything that Gibbs has been through in his career, and the character, you had this idea that he would never truly break. He was this tough, just mean SOB, former Marine, and he was, always had these rules, and he was going to get through, and you couldn't bring him down. And what the writers did, and Harmon, Mark Harmon himself, who's an executive producer on the show and still is today, had to have had a huge part in this. But it's one of the more interesting evolutions of a character that I've ever seen play out on TV. And it's so easy. And everybody else who's left the show, I mean, half the time, it's a shocking death, or they run away because they're going off to a different job. There's always an out, and it happens quick. Whereas NCIS actually let the story of Gibbs walking away play out so much slower than I had really ever seen. And one of the more humanizing part of it was that it reminded me so much of how many people I've known who have been at that point of their life when it's time to move on from something, whether it's a job or a career or a profession or a relationship or a place or a hobby. It doesn't happen all at once. And I've been so impressed over the last year, as it really started, in last season, all the losses that have happened for Gibbs, and even to the point where, in one of the more, I think, torturous moments, he has to shoot Sean Murray, who plays Timothy McGee, who's basically his surrogate, one of his surrogate kids. He has to shoot him in the leg to stop him from walking into a plane that's about to blow up. So he has to shoot his son basically to save him, which everyone's like, oh well, it's good, but you can tell that hit him different,
right?
And it all culminated. I mean, there was this neighbor kid that he became friends with, but only to find out that his mom's actually there trying to kill Gibbs, and you're like, guy just had a lot of stuff. And then in an amazingly human moment that I could see happening in reality, during about this point last season, they're investigating a dog fighting ring, and this guy had tortured his dogs and put them in kennels and drowned them in a lake, and was just a really, really bad dude. But it felt like the culmination of all of the pain and suffering that Gibbs has had to deal with for 18 seasons finally just broke. He was tired of dealing with bad guys. He was tired of following the rules. He's tired of the politics. And he just went full red mist, as they say in sport. When you get the red mist and you're so angry that you just go violent. And he beats up the guy who has killed and tortured dogs, and nobody feels bad about it. And this is where you expect the series to just give him an out, oh, we're not gonna, we'll look the other way because it was the right thing to do. But they actually play it out over the rest of that season and into this season, where his actions and refuse it. They kept trying to give him an out. Rocky Carroll, who plays Leon Vance, the director of NCIS, kept trying to say, just apologize and we'll make it all go away. Just say you were wrong. And Gibbs just wouldn't do it. He's like, I'm not going to say I was wrong or that I did something I regret, because I don't. And it was this culmination of 20 years of cases and deaths and trauma, and he just broke. And I'd never seen a show let that play out over as many episodes and make it feel so real, because there was this feeling that he knew it was over. We've all been in something, whether it was, a career that we're getting towards retirement, or a job that we know isn't working out, or a romantic relationship or friendship, or even when you decide you've worn shoes for too long and you've literally rubbed a hole in the sole of the shoe, and it's just time, but it doesn't happen overnight. That takes a really long time. And it was really cool to see NCIS give the character the space for us to follow that, to the point where they spread it out. I mean, last year's cliffhanger, again, spoiler alert, Gibbs is retired and he's on his boat, driving away, and then the boat explodes, and then we see him, swimming away at the very last credits as it goes to freeze frame in black and white as a cliffhanger. And so we're like, oh well, maybe this will bring him back. But they give you all summer to think about the idea that Gibbs is not coming back, and a short, I think it's 3 to 4 episode arc at the beginning of this season, where he finishes out the mystery of why trying to kill him, and there's a serial killer involved, and they find out, they finally find them out and complete that storyline. But it ends in Alaska, and Gibbs is standing there in waders fly fishing, and McGee is trying to get him to come get on the plane because they're going back, and they've figured out this mystery, and they've cleared his name, and he's going to be able to come back and be Gibbs again. And there's an incredibly well done moment where we think as an audience, and McGee the character thinks, played expertly by Sean Murray, that Gibbs is just going to get on the plane. We're going to go back and normal will be what it was. We're going to go back to normal now. And they don't. And it would have been easier, I think, for them to kill off the character. It would have been easier for him to be like on the run, but to literally just reach the point where he finally found some level of peace and is okay with where his career is ending, and that his life is this now, and he doesn't want to leave that river, and he just wants to fish, and he was done. He's broken. He's done. He can't be Gibbs like that anymore. Was surprising, and it's taken me probably about 3 months to reconcile how I felt about it, because I was real mad. I was real mad when it happened, and I thought it was unfair, and like, how are you going to continue the show? The show is uneven right now. They've brought in Gary Cole to kind of replace Mark Harmon as the leader guy, but there's also, you've got Wilder Valderrama, who's always worked well as more of a side character or a supporting character. He's getting more attention. They brought in, I'm trying to think what her name is. Character's name is Knight, but I'm trying to find the actress's name. They brought in another actress just last year. So you've got a lot of new characters. The show doesn't feel like, it feels like it's still searching for its, new emotional center.
Yeah.
Timothy McGee, I don't think can rise to that. It reminds me a lot of when ER, by the end, Noah Wyle had become the emotional center of that series, where he had started out as just, the intern, when you've got Anthony Edwards and George Clooney and Eric LaSalle. And over time, by the end, he was the only one still there, and he had risen into that. His character had grown into that. I don't think that they've done a good enough job with the Timothy McGee character that he can carry the show. And I think that's where they're kind of stumbling about trying to find their new steps. But it's been, and maybe it's because I've watched so many episodes in the last 24 months, but I've been thoroughly impressed that instead of just doing the thing that they've done with all these other characters, which is either, have them go hide away for some reason on the run or kill them off, to let Gibbs just naturally get to the point where he found peace and he's okay. It was a very non-Hollywood ending. It was a very non-script. It felt real. Like, we've all known somebody who's just got to that point when they're ready to do something else and they're not going to keep doing it anymore. And they need a new challenge and a new space. And I've been very impressed with it. If you haven't watched NCIS in a few years, I would highly recommend watching the last season and a half. I am concerned for the long-term viability of the series without Mark Harmon. They're still trying to figure out that emotional center of the show, and I don't know that they're finding it right now. The post Gibbs episodes have been really uneven, and we'll see if they can continue it. But if you haven't watched in a while, or you've never watched NCIS, and I've ruined everything for you, I apologize for that. I would highly recommend just watching the last probably season and a half, because the character development and the story and the way that the writers in the show gives the character room to naturally come to that decision is unique and not something that I had seen in a while. And that's why it took me 4 months to decide how I wanted to talk about it. So go check out NCIS, and hopefully it'll keep going and it'll find its emotional center.
So out of the long list of co-stars or guest stars or appearances, like when you were going back through the list, are there any that like you were just completely shocked by, that you had completely forgotten about?
Honestly, Jennifer Esposito. Like I forgot that she was on. She was only on for 24 episodes, but I totally forgot that she was on there.
I wonder if that was like right before or after her Blue Bloods time.
I think it must have been right before, because 2016, 2017. So right around there. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I forgot that Lauren Holly was on it as long as she was. And then I feel like Maria Bello leaving last year, and when she left, it was very abrupt. And I've to can contrast how they dealt with that character's decision to change and how they gave Gibbs so much more time. I was afraid they were going to do something like they did with her character, where she was just there and then, nope, I'm done, I'm gone. That was a really interesting character. I liked the relationship that she and Gibbs had, and I think her abruptly leaving is just another piece of his final decision. But yeah, it was really good. I mean, who could forget Cote de Pablo as Ziva David is amazing. I think if they had not gone a different direction with her character, you could have had NCIS with her as the center, or Anthony DiNozzo would have been the natural progression. Problem was Michael Weatherly wanted to do his own show. And so he's doing 4 seasons of Bull. Because you don't, I mean, as good as Sean Murray has done playing Timothy McGee, the character itself is not I think there that it can really carry the show. Also, one side note and all additional kudos for NCIS. It is also the only show that I noticed killed off a main character due to COVID.
Oh.
Brian Dexon, who plays Jimmy Palmer, the medical examiner, his wife, who we barely saw, she was a side character. Probably hadn't even seen her in person on the show in years. Was passed away from COVID, just on the show. And it's really the only show that's that I've seen that has dealt with that head on. And I wish more shows had, but it feels like a lot of Hollywood has avoided it because it's such a potentially dramatic or controversial topic in some ways. But kudos to them for also incorporating that as part of the reality.
Yeah. I want to say New Amsterdam, which I know you're familiar with. Dr. Max Goodwin.
Yeah.
They did tackle the virus head on. I know that they addressed losing people. I don't remember if it was anyone like a main character. But the main characters were deeply impacted. Like they focused on, I can't believe we lost these people due to this, and it really impacted the main characters.
Yeah, I've never watched New Amsterdam. I really couldn't stand that guy's character on the Blacklist, and so when he left the Blacklist, I was kind of excited. So I did not like the character at all. And so I was like, I don't think I want to follow this guy to another show. So, and we talk about I can't do scary movies. Doctor shows, they're like their own sort of scary. I gotta be in the right mindset to be going down those creepy hallways. So, which is weird because I watched ER and Chicago Hope when I was in 6th grade, and wasn't weirded out. I feel like as I've gotten older and had to deal with more actual health stuff with those around me, the hospital show is just a little too much.
I get that. And that character, that Max Goodwin, he's a really good, Ryan Eggold is such a good actor because he was in Black Klansman, and he was horrible. Like his character was like the leader of the KKK, and it was horrible, but I absolutely adore him on New Amsterdam.
I should give it a try, but
you won't. It's okay.
I got so many things. I gotta start watching NCS Hawaii now.
Well,
yeah. Another one that I've been watching that I don't think we've mentioned for weeks is The Cleaning Lady on Fox. That's been really quite good as well.
I don't know that one.
So it's this it's happens in Las Vegas, and this doctor is just working as a cleaning lady because she came to America to get to be here for her son's it has a special medical condition. So she's a doctor where she comes from in Cambodia, and then comes here and just ends up being a cleaning lady just because she wants to be here. And she ends up working basically for the mob as a cleaning lady to clean things up, which has been interesting. I've liked it so far. I think it's worth checking out as well. But I don't think I'd mention that at all. But.
No, but I need to look into that because that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think, and there's a guy on the show who he's from one of the doctor shows, and I can't remember which one it is. No, I'm never gonna find it now. But you see me like, oh, that's the doctor guy, but I can't find it now. But it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't as well. So,
all right. So is that the A side?
That is the A side. That was my 30-minute monologue about my love for Jethro Gibbs. So this is also a Angelina Jolie podcast as well.
You have actually, I mean, like I can remember you really have had a deep fondness for him for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's just, and it's weird because I don't know why I started watching the show again but it was a comfort thing. And to watch 18 and a half seasons of a show in 2 years is patently absurd. But boy, you spend that much time with even fictional characters, and you start to develop a real affinity for them. So
yeah. All right. So there you go. That's the A side.
That's the A side.
All right. So, well, like we always tell you, you can get your photos and sources on our website, Adam.
A side, B side, podcast.square.site.
Also,
pure panic. That sound was pure panic.
You can also, while you're there, you can check out merch. You can check out other episodes, other sources, and other photos from other episodes. It's all there on our website. And you can also get to all of our episodes, not just on our website, but we've got YouTube. You can check out all the streamers. And if you would like to help out the podcast, well, you can do that by buying us a coffee at A Side B Side. Excuse me, I was about to give you the website again. buymeacoffee.com/A Side B Side pod. And yes, it does really go to coffee and to promotion and promotion of,
and maybe this week, some throat soothing lozenges and that sort of thing as well.
A little throat coat tea. Yep.
Yeah.
Am I forgetting anything, Adam?
We've got merch on the website. I posted on my Instagram just a couple days ago. Every time I wear one of our hoodies, I literally have people stop me on the street and ask me about it. So if you also would like to talk to strangers, you should get one of those hoodies. And then you'll just have random people be like, hey, tell me about that sweatshirt. You'd be like, dude, I have earbuds in. It says I don't want to talk to you, but I'll talk.
But you have to promote the podcast.
Oh yeah, I do. Absolutely. But then they're talking about, oh, I got this podcast. You can just see their eyes glaze over a little bit like, oh, look, random white guy's got a podcast. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, but then you hit them with the true crime and they'll be like, whoa.
Yeah, people always, because I love the logo and it's got like the blood spatter, and I swear the blood spatter graphic is what like catches people's eye, because either like, is that person injured or what is that about?
Oh man. All right, so this is episode 81. I think we're ending at a good time because I think I have run out of voice.
Yeah, you get some rest, so then we'll hear you next week.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Brooke.